Wayne Wise, elder statesman of Pittsburgh comics, who we just happened upon here. And he has gracefully decided to answer our questions. So the stereotype of a geek is a little sartorial challenge.
Yes. Yes.
But I mean, you and I have the same sort of thing going on.
The shirt.
Yeah, but that works.
Yeah.
That works.
This is the Museum of Cartoon Art. It's not just, you know, I'm promoting comics as art on my chest.
Exactly, and it's basically my contention that if you throw a blazer over anything,
you're dressed up.
Exactly, and why don't they realize this?
I have a frock coat. I almost really should have worn the frock coat. I know.
If you have a frock coat, you should always wear the frock coat.
Charity Quick Sketch will be starting in 5 minutes. Charity Quick Sketch, 5 minutes in the main showroom.
All right.
Game on.
So now to the more difficult questions. Why do you think most females in comics are drawn with unrealistically large breasts?
Because boys like unrealistically large breasts.
So it doesn't matter that the physics of that is kind of impossible.
Yeah, I mean it's a complicated issue. Absolutely, the whole body image thing. I think I don't want to defend it, and I know there's what's the word? It's a false connection that male characters in comics are also exaggerated. It's a different issue for men than it is for women. Body image is more of a feminine issue than a male issue. The things that are exaggerated in the stereotype of the superhero are the very masculine, super strong, whatever. It's about doing things. With women, it's more of the sexual characteristics, which isn't so much about doing things.
It's about being things.
Exactly. And I do think just, you know, for good or ill, most comics have been done by men over the years, and that's where it comes from, to the point that it's become its own cliche.
Do you see that changing as time goes on?
I think there have always been other examples. In the mainstream, Marvel, DC, if anything, is getting worse. You know? I really think so. They're just ongoing depictions that are just more and more exaggerated.
Which is strange. You would think as time went on that they would kind of wise up to that.
Yeah, but there have always been, in the underground, I mean, Love and Rockets is my prime example. It's one of the most brilliant comics ever done. I mean, highly influential. And both the two main brothers who do it, Jaime and Gilbert Hernandez, their main characters in both their series are women, and the variety of body types reflect reality. There are really highly exaggerated feminine figures because that's real in real life. But there's also fat women, skinny women, short women, tall women of all types.
Right.
And
it's just not what's prevalent.
Yes.
It's not, unfortunately, what sells.
And Love and Rocket's been around for 30 years, so it's not like that's a new thing in comics.
Right. So that kind of leads to our next question is, do you think that there's a certain misogyny in comics? Like, at least especially at cons or in the genre itself, do you think that it's alienating to women?
Yeah, I do. Wow. These issues are so called. This is like an entire class.
I know.
It is. It's an entire class. Yes, I think it's absolutely alienating. I mean, when you see violence toward women, I actually, in the interview your husband did with me about my novels, he asked me about this. And I have a really long response.
It's a huge issue. I mean, I've been here in this for I can't even remember, like for more than 10 years. So I've been dealing with all of it myself, and I know that I've never been quite comfortable, and I've always wondered why.
Yeah, well, and there is that element of being a boys' club. There's that element of the fantasy that is there, and I think primarily with the superhero genre. And you know, inviting real girls into your fantasies.
It's scary.
Yeah, because that completely destroys the fantasy.
If they have wills of their own, it doesn't work as well.
But there's definitely, I mean, the misogynism, and I talked about this in the other interview about the whole issue of violence toward women. Like body image is a different
for males and females, it's always a different
and I pointed out in the novel that he and I were talking about, the book, there's violence against women in the book as part of the plot. It's a horror novel. Part of that is I'm a victim of tropes in my genre. But it's not like the guys escape it completely unscathed either. I do horrible, horrible things to men in my book as well.
Right.
But that doesn't get, people don't notice that. And I think it says something, I think in general in our society, violence toward men is more accepted than violence toward women. It's not talked about as much.
It's a scary thing. We should mention that Wayne is a novelist as well. He is not only focused on comics. He has more of a literary bent than a lot of people that we might talk to today.
So just as a bigger issue in general, that whole idea of violence against anyone, not a good thing. It's more of an issue when it's portrayed against women, as it should be, because I mean, that's a horrible thing.
Do you want to talk about Frank Miller? I've only been asking people that deserve to be asked.
Okay, which part of Frank Miller?
Don't you think he's a dick? It's okay to say that he is.
I met Frank back in 1986, the year Dark Knight came out, and was out with him and a whole bunch of people. I'm name dropping. I was out with him and Dave Sim and Steve Bissett and Jon Towers and Bill Sienkiewicz.
I wrote a letter to Dave Sim once. Hey Your Friends was nominated for a date prize.
Frank was fine. You know, he was fun to hang out with. I do think somewhere along the line he turned the corner, and I don't know what's going on.
Like that's a lot of what we've been talking about today with people is that I think that there's this dichotomy in comics where you either have to be the damsel in distress or you have to be the sex kitten. So it's the same thing as sort of what women are subjected to in normal discourse is that you're either the Madonna or the whore.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in between.
There's nothing in between, yeah. Well, complexity of character. It's hard to write. And once again, if most comics are being written by men, writing women is more of a challenge than writing men. Because we ain't you.
Right. Thank goodness.
But I find that challenging. In my own work, I've been complimented very highly on the way I write female characters. I don't know if I get it right or not. My readers seem to think so.
If your female readers think so, then that's the highest compliment. Have you ever had a romance at a con?
Ooh, at a con? Not a romance per se, no. There have been hookups, I suppose, but romance, nah.
So that kind of leads into, don't you think it's kind of this easy environment for women?
Yeah, absolutely. Because and here it is, like the cosplay things come in.
Yeah.
When I first started going to conventions in the early 80s, there was the costume contest on Sunday afternoon for an hour, and people got in costume and did the contest, and then got out of costume. And now cosplay has really infiltrated conventions. It's a huge part of it.
I'm really surprised, because usually, I mean, you come here and the contest is on Sunday, so everybody is dressed up on Sundays. But we're here today, it's Saturday, and there are maybe 50 more people than usual.
And I think, obviously men do costuming as well, and I think it ties into this whole mythic thing of the mask and identity, costuming, and whatever.
Which ties deeply into the way they look at themselves, the way they look at superheroes.
Right, all that stuff. But I think cosplay in its biggest form, I think that's come from the women who are coming into the audience, and forgive me if this sounds sexist, but there is that whole, in general, broad generalities. Women are more into clothes.
He said broad.
Broad, yes. Broad generalities about broads. Women in general more into clothing. I think the whole sewing and making the costume has become a part of this hobby that they have gotten into far more than men have.
So you think it's a different expression of creativity, really?
I do, yeah. And as more and more women have joined this hobby, we're seeing more and more cosplay. So let's turn it around. I find that interesting that if it's the women who are doing the cosplay, why are they wearing these sleazy, revealing costumes?
I was actually talking about that earlier.
So, and I have nothing against it, but it does seem to be a dichotomy of, ooh, it's a sleazy environment, let me put on my fishnets.
Right.
So,
I mean, also, it's not as if they don't know that they're like, if you put on a costume like that, you know what sort of thing that you're doing. When we were talking about it earlier, the metaphor overall has been like it's putting blood into water where sharks are circling. So, like, if you walk in and you are exposed,
so I should call them chum.
Yes, exactly. Oh, God forbid! Chum. Don't let that catch on, because that's terrible. We can't exchange that with me. But no, it does. I think it becomes a little strange for a woman who, and especially if she just thinks that she's expressing her creativity. But I don't know exactly how with some of the costumes.
Well, and obviously, what I said about my writing and creative, we are all.
I saw a female Riddler today, and she was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we're victims of our genre. You write the genres have certain rules and tropes that are part of it, for good or ill. That's how you recognize the genre. And anybody who works in the genre is you start throwing those things in, because that's just the way this stuff is done.
Because people react to it.
People react to it. And I really believe a lot of the stuff that's done, misogynistic or not, isn't done from any conscious, I'm going to be a misogynist today.
Right. I woke up in the morning and I thought, I'm going to be misogynist.
Yeah, it comes out through the work because that's the way the work is. I mean, you start out by repeating your influences and trying to work around those influences. Eventually, hopefully, you find some way or something new to say with those genres.
Great.
But you come into it repeating what you've seen, and if that's what you've seen, that's what you do. So.
Well, wonderful. Thanks, Wayne,
Sure.
for talking to us. We get hugs.